Media evaluation question 3. What have you learned from your audience feedback? To gain audience feedback from both my teaser and gameplay trailers, as well as my ancillary tasks, I had to look over two important sources, YouTube and Classmates. Both of these sources do have both their positives and negatives. YouTube allows several users to place their comments on particular videos in which they can write their thoughts for everyone to use. Some of the thoughts that posters produce can be constructive, especially when posted on official YouTube accounts, as it can have an impact on future videos. However, some posters can offer just purely negative criticism. These are known as internet trolls. These are users that post only negative comments, usually to annoy other users or because they hate the makers of that particular video. Internet trolls may affect the way we view our audience feedback on YouTube, as it is not fair criticism. Class feedback can be very beneficial for our particular product, as half the class are made up of people we are aiming our product at, which means that their feedback is very important to us. However, the size of the class is very small, so we won't be able to get a fair response. However, some companies may make changes to their game based on audience response. The gaming company Gearbox changed their game Borderlands 2 to fit comments made by their target audience. For example, the menu of the game has been changed for PC games to make it more mouse and keyboard friendly. The feedback for our first trailer from our class was a mixed response, the major one being that it looked quite dull and bland. The font used was a standard white Arial font that wasn't animated and simply just flashed on the screen. It didn't attract the eyes of the audience, making them uninterested in what the writing said. Another problem with the writing is that it went too fast across the screen and needed more time to allow the viewer to read what was actually said. Overall, the general writing wasn't eye-catching or even just interesting to the spectator. Another big problem with our first trailer is that it didn't really make much sense story-wise. Although it did to me and the person I work with, we didn't really get that message across to the wider audience. However, there were some positives for the first trailer, with the main one being that it builds up suspense well. General consensus was that although the main idea behind the trailer was good, it never was really executed in a very good way to appeal to a mass audience. We did improve on these aspects greatly for our second trailer. After making our first trailer, we knew that we had to make something that would appeal to the wider audience. This meant that we had to show off a lot more action to appeal to the Call of Duty and Battlefield fan base we were aiming toward. We got rid of the story elements for the second trailer, so we could show off more of the gameplay a player may expect. The first issue I glanced at with the second trailer was the lack of sound effects. Like our first trailer, we only had a soundtrack accompanying the video with no other voices or sound effects. Our feedback here told us that we should have at least a voiceover telling us the general outline of the story. Also, like trailer 1, the audience again felt like they didn't really know what the game was really about. There was nothing about the story, and all they really saw was action. Although they found it more interesting, they never really knew what was going on. We did take some pointers from our first trailer response in that we changed the fonts and animated the writing to make it more eye-catching to the viewer. We made the writing explode and twist in order to fit both the soundtrack and video of the trailer. It certainly looked a lot better than its predecessor, and our audience generally agreed with this. However, along with this came some more constructive criticism, as the font went too quickly and the audience didn't have enough time to read the writing that was said. Also, some mentioned that the titles could potentially be misleading. In particular, the title Big Guns Bigger may lead someone to think that this is a sequel to a game, rather than being a separate game and being able to upgrade weapons like we intended them to think. The trailer did, however, serve its main purpose. The audience overall liked this a lot more than the first trailer, as it was faster paced and kept attention. They also felt it looked more professional than the first trailer. The trailer suited more to a mass audience, which is exactly what we wanted to do when creating it. My feedback for the first ancillary was generally positive. The problems were more little details than anything overwhelmingly negative. The first positive note was that the font on the back page of the cover looked pretty good and quite realistic. The font was made to look like an electronic typewriter, and I'm glad this was brought across to my audience. The pictures also get the feel of my game across. The pictures show enemies, location and action elements of my game, all of which my audience liked and make them want to buy it. Some also said that the overall feel of the cover was that it was mysterious and enticed the viewer to buy it. The only main complaint is that it didn't have any age certificate on there. However, the feedback from my second ancillary, a teaser poster, was far more negative. I rushed this poster a lot when creating it, and my audience could see this when critiquing it. It looked cheap. I intended the poster to have a look of some graffiti being sprayed on a wall, but instead it looked like just word text on a picture of a wall. Some praised the war theme and silhouette of the gas mask in the background, but positives were few and far between. I took this criticism on board and went back to completely change the poster. Some wanted me to copy what I'd done for my game cover, which was to take a screenshot from the trailer and modify it. After some consideration, I decided against this. I still wanted to keep the element of intrigue and wanted it to be a teaser poster rather than actually spelling out the game. I decided to create a retro poster and took my time actually developing it so it looked like a retro poster and not lazily put together. The overall feelings for my changes were far more positive than my initial poster. There has also been constructive criticism from YouTube. There have been comments from YouTube saying that the ending of the trailer 1 is too loud and that the ending of the trailer 2 is too short. Overall, the feeling towards our first trailer were all details I felt we improved upon in our second trailer. However, our main criticism is that both trailers never really explained any of the story, and that although it looked good, the audience never really knew what was going on. The overall feeling towards my first ancillary was very positive, but the second was very negative. I took those comments on board and created a second poster which had far more positive response. And that is what I learnt from my audience feedback.